On today's Kelly and Company, we're going back to basics with our money. Always fun to do it with that, the money, most important thing. Ryan Chin from Sun Life Financial will shed some light on starting a savings plan, since we all clearly need the extra cash these days. The Hot Docs Film Festival is North America's largest documentary film festival. It just wrapped up in Toronto, showcasing Canadian and international documentaries and lots of non-fiction storytelling to boot. Film critic Michael McNeely joins us with his top highlights. Hey, guys, let's make a documentary on saving money. I mean, we'll have to do it in the States so we can avoid the proposed tariffs. Let's do it!
This is Kelly and Company.
Hanging out with you, Kelly MacDonald here on your Wednesday midweek. Remember to check out our podcast. If you can't be with us live on AMI Audio at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, subscribe to the podcast, give us a rating and review. Also, visit our YouTube page. Lots of great content over there that you can enjoy. I also welcome in Nazreen Abdul-Majid joining me on the program as we settle in for the Wednesday edition of the show. A long time ago, we had this discussion on the show, Nazreen. I'd love it if you went through your week, Monday through Friday. What do you feel is your greatest, most efficient work day, and which one is not?
I mean, I feel like Tuesday and Wednesday are more efficient. Okay, no, I'd say Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I know those 3 days, but I feel like Monday and Friday, I'm pumped up for the weekend. I just want to get out early, like as much as possible.
In your head.
I don't check out early, but like that, my brain checks out early.
That's
you
what
know. But Monday, I'm like drained from the weekend. Yeah. I'm drained from the weekend on Monday. I just need to be motivated more. So it's a process to get myself ready for the whole week. So I get overwhelmed with emails and the work that I have to do. And then Tuesday, I'm like, okay, I got this, like this is the pattern. And it's a repeat every week. How about you?
What day do you feel most caught up? Is it Tuesday or by Wednesday?
I'd say Wednesday, I think.
Okay. Thursday's my favorite day.
Halfway through the week.
Monday, I feel fine. I actually don't really mind, getting into work. I don't really feel drained. Mm-hmm. For some reason, come, Thursday, oh gosh, one more show. It's hard because to answer the question, I generally think back to before I did this show. Because I love doing this show. I love hosting. I love carrying on. I love listening to our guests. To me, it's thumbs up. Upside generally 90% of the time, which is I know a lot more than what most people feel about a job. So even trying to catch up, even trying to keep ahead, I mean, there are those minor things that we have to do, surveys, things like that for the company, those little extra things that are thrown on to help out the company be more efficient and so on. Some of those things that makes it tough. But I think in this job, I love Thursdays. I certainly am relieved at the end of Friday's show to say, but no day is particularly work more annoying than others. I feel pretty lucky that way. I don't feel so behind, even though I do get behind. There's definitely stuff I stall on. So, but as for checking out or feeling like, oh man, unless I had, and that could be any day, unless I had something in particular I needed to do, something distracting me, that's a Monday through Friday potential.
I love the attitude though. I love the attitude. I agree with you. Thursday is, I think, my favorite day because I'm like, okay, there's one day and then the weekend. Yeah. So I'm pumped up on Thursday because I feel like it's more chill and relaxing than any other day. So I just get excited.
Thursday is for me. Thursday, and this is an interesting thing. These things go back to when I went to the blind school. The next day we left the school because we stayed Sunday night through Friday. The next day I went home. So Thursday always was I had high energy. It was a high performance day. We had fun things that often happened on the Thursday that we had to look forward to through the week. And once in a while you had something maybe once a month that was kind of a cool event or something going on at the school. So Thursdays for me were really always like that. So I tend to hold on to that. Whereas adversely, Sunday I would head back to the school. Sundays I still struggle with. I just sort of like, almost as if I've got to go jump on a bus and head back to the blind school. So it's really funny how some of these things will stick with you. That does. And it's not that I had a terrible time at the blind school. I'm not trying to suggest that, folks. I'm just saying leaving home. And that kind of, sticks with me. And the fact that a lot of my years working at AMI, I commuted to Toronto and worked. So I think some of that kind of makes me sort of feel like, yeah. But the work from home thing, studio here, being able to do everything, I have a great old time. Really do.
Oh, it's great. Yeah. So we are enough. Enough as a parent, enough as a person. We are enough as we are, and our children are enough as they are. This is the idea Lucia Bellafante is here to help us grasp. So ironically, that's a pretty loaded question. That's a pretty loaded word. Lucia, how are we going to tackle the idea of being enough?
So I thought if we think of enough from the perspective of wholeness, then it becomes a little bit easier to grasp what we're talking about when we say enough. So oftentimes, we might think, am I being productive enough? Am I successful enough, patient enough, present enough in my life and in my children's lives? Or perhaps, we might question something about our children. Are they working hard enough? So what if we come at this from the perspective of wholeness, meaning enough is not about our worth being tied to what we are doing, but rather to our being. So the awareness, the desire to want to do our best as we navigate life, as we navigate parenthood, just that is enough. And then from there, it's not that we're making excuses or settling, but rather we then incorporate self-reflection, self-acceptance. And when we take stock of where we are in the present moment and where we want to be, we begin to bridge that gap, understanding that in the present moment, we are enough simply because we showed up. So that's the idea of this wholeness.
Yeah. Well, I do feel like you bring up a really good point, but everybody I know, at least, we question, are we productive enough? Are we successful enough? Are we patient enough? Are we present enough? And if we think in terms of perfection, then most of us fall apart. So how do we convince ourselves that our existence is just enough, rather than everything that we're doing it really defines who we are and if we value ourselves?
Right. So I think part of those questions is what I like to say, like we let go of those shoulds, right? I should this, I should that. My child should be doing better. I should be doing this. They should be doing that. And they can be traps for us, right? And so if we look at what we feel about what we're saying to ourselves and really look at it and see how we're feeling, but also incorporate detachment, which can be a little bit challenging to do at first. And that's one of those things, like the more you practice it, the better you become. So you look at how you are feeling and what you are saying with detachment, add in some discernment, and be really honest with yourself. And then you discover that you can observe yourself and your child and better gauge, does there need to be change? Is there room for change? Is it just a should that I'm thinking, maybe it's from the outside coming in? It's other people saying things to you, or what you feel should be a certain way. But really, when you reflect, you realize, no, I'm doing fine. Things are well the way they are. And then that's okay. So there's that self-reflection.
Because the expectations others have on you, on society, on individuals. They don't even have to be saying, oh, Lucia, I expect you to do more of this, or how come you don't? No one has to say anything. They lead by either an example that we grab onto and say, well, if there were, they graduated the same time I did from high school, it's fast forward 20 years, I should be doing what they're doing, as opposed to what you're okay with. And being
Yeah.
comfortable. I mean, I know
Absolutely.
we have to understand norms in society. I get that.
Hmm.
And we're going to always hold ourselves up to that to a point. But there is a level of what makes you happy. I mean, we all have had people say, you know, you should be
Hmm.
doing this. And some people have parents that, well, I want you having a good job. I want you making good money so you'll be okay when we're not here to catch you.
Hmm.
Some of these things are placed on young people. And that's not,
Yes.
I don't want to do that. I don't want to be a doctor. As versely, when you're a child, someone has to help you learn how to be proud of yourself, accept yourself, so that you're not constantly comparing yourself. And that's a tough one
Yes.
because we start it early, or we're told, well, your friend is doing that. How come you're not? As a
Yeah.
coaxing to do better at
We
school,
need
do
Hmm.
better in a sport.
affirmations. Yeah, we need validation. We need affirmations from our, the people that we look up to as kids.
Absolutely, right? But you bring up really interesting points in that our past or our environment can affect the way we are feeling about ourselves and that whole idea of being enough. And I think just those questions are important because if you reflect back on again and take that feeling, where are the thoughts coming from? Where are the ideas coming from? And you've mentioned different places, right? But then you realize they're not necessarily your own. And I
Mhm.
think that can be a huge first step in realizing, well, maybe this was said to me, or maybe someone else is doing this, but that's not right for me. And again, that's where we do that self reflection, observe our lives, right? Ourselves within our own life. Think of, and then that idea of being honest, it's like, okay, am I not doing more because I'm happy? I'm content. This is fine for me. And it's fine for everyone is different, and that's
Yeah.
okay. If you are happy, if you're
Mhm.
content within your own self and within your own life, then we have to really learn and um, focus on saying to ourselves, you mentioned the idea of affirmations, create some
Mhm.
affirmations for yourself, or just focus on the fact that, yes, I'm happy. And we close our ears to the external and
Right.
simply continue to go within.
Is
And
there
I,
an
I saw,
age
yeah.
mhm.
is there an age you'd like to see where a parent feels this lesson for a child is ready, that they're ready, they're mature enough to. I try to think back to as a youth, when did I
Mm,
learn certain things? And the monkey see, monkey do, or don't do as I would do, or
right.
all those different things. Hey, just be, if he went and jumped in the lake, would you go after him and jump in the lake? All these
Hmm.
things said to me that taught me I didn't have to follow, I didn't have to seek approval from, but society says, you don't want to peeve off the teacher, you want to do what you're asked to do, your parents want to see the good grade, so it's a very contradictory message that children receive. All of us do.
But I think so. You asked the question about age, and remind me to answer that because I definitely will. But I don't want to forget this one. So it's really important when we speak of enough that what we're saying is we're not saying that we shouldn't try harder or we
Right.
shouldn't try to become more of
For
who we
sure.
could be or help our children to become more. It's more the idea of that acceptance of, if I am doing my best, right? There comes the self reflection and the honesty, right? If I am doing my best and I'm truly happy, if my child is doing their best and they are truly happy, then
Mhm.
that is enough, right? I think to me it's a very personal, then subjective feeling realization, but I think that is enough. So now I'm going to answer the question about age. We've talked about many different things, on the shows together, and one of the things that I feel very strongly about is, yes, there might be the typical age for when a child will learn to speak or walk, or read. But an age where you learn about self worth, self love, I think begins at the beginning. I don't think there's an age when you can begin to teach your child that they should love themselves, should accept themselves for who they are,
Yeah.
that they are enough. It begins the moment they're born.
Right.
And how we do
Yeah.
that is a
And I
different
just gotta
discussion,
add,
but
No,
Yes.
it's beautiful because you're absolutely right. I saw a video on TikTok of a
Mm-hmm.
mom.
Mm.
She has a 5-year-old, and every time she does her hair or dresses her up, she's like, "Okay, let's do it's good morning. It's time for
Mm.
affirmations." And she sits
Mm-hmm.
down in front of a mirror while she does her hair, and she's like, "Okay, you are," and then the little girl goes, "Beautiful," and "You are this," and "You are enough," blah blah blah. So like it's
Yeah.
teaching her so much self-love, and it's precious. It's absolutely precious, and I feel like that's what a lot of parents need to kind of open up to, instead of saying, okay, well, if you're not a doctor, you're not doing this right, you're
Mm-hmm.
not going to succeed in life, you're not going to be this.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of like lecturing every second, instead of kind of, guiding your
Mm-hmm.
child into more of a strict path in life, I feel like a lot of parents need to have an open mind, and to teach them, as you said, at a very young age, right when they're born, that these things can be taught. These things can be guided,
Absolutely.
right? Yeah.
And it's important. So not only with the language, with the words that we say to our children, but a big part of it is also how we behave towards our
Hmm.
children and towards ourselves. And it's holding your child, understanding that if a newborn is crying, they're crying because they need to be soothed in one way or
Right.
another. They're not crying because they're being selfish and want all your attention. I mean, I don't know if people still believe in that, but I think sometimes we need to question ourselves. We need to question our own ideas and where they are coming from. Again, that internal self reflection. And absolutely, when you are doing things with your children, affirmations are beautiful. And then just our natural language as we speak to our child, and they come home, let's say, for example, they've come home from a test and they got a B. And, you can say, oh, that's great, you did well. Or you can say, why didn't you get an A? Or you might ask, how do you feel about the
I
mark you
think
got on your
I think a lot
test?
of us grew up that way, though. I
Oh,
know
with
a
the
lot of
why isn't it
people
an A?
Why
I
didn't you
know a
get an
lot
A?
of
Well, I got 7
people
questions
Yeah.
have
wrong.
been
What?
through that. For example, me,
Yes.
like every time I came with an A, they're like, "Oh, you
Yes.
should have got an A plus though." Like
Yes.
that's
Why didn't
but
you
it's
get an
it's
off the
the
scale?
older mentality. I feel like it's so different from now. The
Yes.
older
Oh,
the older generation, I feel like it's just a
mhm.
very different mindset
Yeah, there's always going to
completely.
be the critics, and you're always listening to aunt and uncle. And as a child, you hear
Yeah.
stuff. So, like you say, Lucia, a lot of it has to be because you don't want to teach a child to, well, discard whatever aunt and uncle say because they're whatever. When you're a kid, you want
Right.
people to learn to measure for themselves. And I think that
Absolutely.
is really think for yourself. I remember hearing that a lot too. Of course, that was all
Mm.
on, monkey see, monkey do. Are you going to follow? But
Yes.
it's that reality of be happy with who you are, not trying
Yeah.
to
Mhm.
be somebody else. And they're
Absolutely.
so hard lessons. Wow.
They
Yeah.
are. But I think even parenting, and so this is not, I think it's really important that we mention it's not about judgment, right? Like none
Right.
of us.
Mhm.
I had the same thing. My father would always say to me the same. If I came home with an A, it was why isn't it an A plus? Right?
Right.
And I get that. But if we keep in mind that most times, like 99.9% of the time, parents are doing what they truly feel is the best thing for their child, right?
Yeah.
So it's not about judgment. And now, as an adult, we can reflect for ourselves and we can change that narrative in our mind. We can change the narrative in our heart. We can
Yeah.
say, I am enough. My A was enough. People talk now we're kind of getting into the area of inner child work. But the
Yes.
reality is, we need to realize
That's how
we
it
are
starts
enough.
though.
Yes,
Yeah.
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 It's an important is an important thing. I love that, society has become more open that we now talk about inner child work and healing
Mhm.
ourselves as an adult and speaking to our younger selves. But
Right.
if there's a parent listening now and you can question yourself and your parenting methods towards your child and ask yourself about the things that you're saying. Where are they coming from? Is this truly for my child's best interest, or is it because I'm worried? And sometimes the things we say as parents are because we're afraid. We're afraid for our child's future. We might be afraid for their safety. And so instead of trying to teach them a way in order to be self-sufficient, in order to think so that they're safe and successful, we scare them, right?
Yeah.
And so I think this is where that self-reflection comes in, both as an adult and then towards our children and understanding that. And I know we don't have much time left, but I really want to stress the fact that we're not using an excuse and saying we don't need to grow, we don't need to become more, but we want to approach this from a place of self-love and from a place of knowing and feeling and understanding that as we are in this moment, so I'm going to repeat, in this moment, we are enough. And then we can grow from there.
I have to say, Lucia, even though it shouldn't be, I have to wonder how different the enough conversations that we could have regarding those in the disability world, whether it be children, parents with a disability, or not raising a child. I think as much as it shouldn't be, what you said here applies the same.
Yes.
I'm sure life experience that you've observed, seen in any capacity may say that it unfortunately dictates a little bit different, and maybe at times even better. Maybe people with disabilities get some of those encouragements, lessons earlier, or take them a different way, or unfortunately maybe not, because
oh my gosh, great conversation to have.
Yeah, it's just something to think about. Thanks, Lucia.
Oh, are we done?
Yeah,
I know, it flew by so fast.
I mean, finish with your comment though, Lucia.
But I just wanted to say, in terms of thinking of an adult with a disability or a child, you know, if you're a parent raising a child with a disability, I really truly hope the discussion we had today filters through there too. That was my intent. You know, having my own children that have various disabilities, and myself with my own challenges that I've had, I think it's really important to remember why we are saying and doing what we're doing. One, right? We need to have that self-reflection, introspection, and understand ourselves. And then why are we saying and feeling what we are about our children? And this idea of enough when it comes to, you know, right now I'm thinking about a student that I had who I'm still in touch with, who is now a young adult, and whose life is limited simply because the parents are afraid. Right?
Yeah.
And I think that when we think of enough, you know, understanding that our child is enough. And if we're feeling that worried about them, then it becomes, as a parent, our responsibility to give them the skills to go out into life so that they're not afraid and we are not afraid. I feel so strongly about that. And I realize it's my own personal opinion, but everyone has the right to live their life the way they see it fit, the way they choose to live life. Whether you have, you know, a high disability or a low disability, first and foremost, we are human beings. And the fact that we are living and breathing is enough, and we have a right to choose how we live life. Okay, I'll be quiet now. Thanks for listening.
No. Lucia, that was beautiful. That was beautifully said. Thank you so much for helping us understand what it means to be enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a wonderful rest of the day.
Lucia Bellafante will be back next month for more chats about holistic parenting. Kelly, we live in a very harsh society. It can be hard.
Yeah,
and I think, this conversation that we had, exactly, it really does. It really does. And I think it's so important for our loved ones to, you know, reflect on the conversations that they have with, let's say, for example, their kids. You know, it's very important to, I know, as Lucia put it, everybody has a different definition of what they feel is best for their kids, what they feel is best for their loved ones. But at the end of the day, you really have to reflect on your actions being impacted on these people that you are guiding. So we live in a very harsh society, no doubt about it. I feel like it keeps getting worse, and I'm trying to be positive about it, but I'm also being realistic that all we have is our loved ones, the people that we care about. So we really need to put that in perspective, be open-minded, and really love each other.
I think sometimes we look at things like work and we push, and then the aha moment comes to us about work-life balance, about, hey, I'm comfortable with who I am, or how come I've spent all my life listening to other people's opinions, trying to be like my sibling or my parents or whatever it might be, and you realize not necessarily I can't. I need to do what makes me happy. I'm given one life, and that life is called my life, and I have to figure out, without inconveniencing others, messing around with other people's lives, I have to work out what is right for me, and I owe it to myself to find that kind of satisfaction. And yes, that does mean growing in the ways that you want. So hopefully folks, lots of that conversation stuck with you, and whatever, and you took from it, as we ask you to do with all of our conversations. We're looking for members of the disability community to join our AMI research panel. Our research panel guides us with every decision we make here at AMI, including programming, media consumption, and accessibility, of course. Participants are compensated for all long-form studies that they participate in. For more information or how to join, go to ami.ca/panel. We'd, of course, love to hear from you at your time, at your convenience, and all your thoughts and opinions. You can follow us. We're interested in talking to you on Instagram and Twitter at Kelly & Co. AMI. Great way to reach out to the program. Great way to follow what we're doing and to get into the conversation at Kelly & Co. AMI on Instagram and on X. Well, there are some basic... Well, I'll put it in plurals because we're going to talk about a bunch of them here. There are some basics when it comes to finance, and we've been through many of these topics over the years as we've done this program. Starting a savings plan, for example. Oh, yeah, it sounds so simple, doesn't it? Just start doing it. However, the big but, why is it so hard to do? Let's find out with financial planner Ryan Chin from Sun Life Financial. Ryan, welcome back to the show.
Much, Cal, and I really enjoyed that last topic. I hear, when we think about are we enough, one of the mantras we have here, and I have with all of my friends and family, we simply say, "You're good enough, you're smart enough, and doggone it, people like you."
Yeah, I think
love that.
too much. We're led by, do people like me? Am I going to get if I'm too different? Is that a problem? Well, you know what? Different is nice. It's wonderful. We are all different because, funny enough, we're not the same person. But that's great, Ron. Thank you.
We're individuals.
You betcha, and that's the beauty of being human. When thinking of starting a savings plan, Ryan, where does someone get started?
Yeah, you know what? I mean, this is truly the conundrum, right? Setting a budget is generally the first place we like to start because we all know how much money is going to be coming in every month, whether we're on a fixed income, whether it be a disability pension, maybe we're employed and we're getting an income from a salary, or maybe we're, contract work and we're doing some kind of service and getting paid for that. So we have an understanding of what our income is going to be. And then there are those expenses. And those expenses are the things, there are some controllable ones and uncontrollable ones. The uncontrollable expenses, are things that sort of pop up. The controllable ones are sort of those fixed expenses like your rent or your bills or, whether it be your cell phone bill or whatnot. So setting a budget is truly important because once we know our income and our expenses, then we can understand how much can we put towards saving. I mean, lots of strategies out there. I mean, there's one simple strategy. You can follow the 50-20-30 rule, where 50% of your income will go towards sort of those fixed expenses, your rent and your cable and your phone and such. And then you can have 20%, which would go towards your savings. and then you could put 30% towards those wants, or those, hey, I'd like to pick up, or go to a movie, or I'd like to go to a concert, or get this
Mm,
extra treat, or whatever have
I
you. And
like
then
that.
that way you can sort of can map out your expenses a little bit better.
Hmm. And
I
that
really like that.
30% is also good, because if you do have a surprise, I have to make a purchase, I have to pay something, or this electric bill is higher than I expected, I have to take from there. I guess that is the amount. You obviously can't really from the fixed savings. You don't want to if you can help it. Take from that kind of more wilder spending for your I know groceries are in there. I understand that. I know entertainment's also in there. And I think that would be the smartest part of that plan, right, Ryan? Take care of those things at the top of that 30% budget.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, that's sort of a little bit baked into that 50% as well. I mean, and so part of it is, like, as a certified financial planner, and all advisors out there, and specifically, I mean, even ones from Sun Life and such. I mean, our job is to really boil down to with each individual, what is it that we're trying to achieve? What are our goals? And then once we start to understand what your goals are, then we can get into it. Your income, and then what are your expenses? So you pay X number for rent, for food, for utilities. All right, now those expenses are what we would call your fixed expenses. Then you've got your habitual ones. You know what? I like to go to the gym. I like to go to the movies twice a month. I like to, dine out on a Friday, whatever have you. Those are more habitual. But you know what? We always try to understand, what those fixed expenses are, because typically someone would say you need to build an emergency budget, like emergency savings, and having that
Right.
emergency
Mhm.
account. And that's typically 3 months of your fixed expenses. So that, like you say, Cal, if pops up that my hydro bill is more expensive one month, you've got that emergency fund that you can tap into. So build that emergency fund first, and then you can also start to build up that long-term saving strategy.
Okay.
I
So
think
is debt
that is
included?
so important because
Yeah.
ever heard the saying, when it rains, it pours? I feel like when something happens, when your like
Yes.
car breaks down or something, there's always like a domino effect. So to have that is very important. I agree with that.
Yeah. What do you do
Yeah.
about debt? Where does that fall into? You come out of
Oh
school,
yeah.
you're telling these young people, hey, you want to form your budget, form a budget. That's something to take into account. What do you suggest?
Yeah, and I mean, we're all going to accumulate some kind of debt, whether it's credit card debt or student loan debt. I mean, there are different strategies around, it's I'll say this. When we've lived our lives, we've made some choices. Maybe we reflect back on, hey, maybe we shouldn't have done that. Now we've built up this amount of debt. Or maybe it's student loan debt, and that was a good choice. But now we've got these pools of debt that we need to deal with. The first thing to do is truly understand how can we knock this thing down? How can we get this debt away from us? We've got a couple of options where we look at either the avalanche or the snowball. And when we think about the avalanche, what we're trying to do is look at those high interest debts, those credit card debts, anything that's sort of north of 15% interest rates. Because it's all well and good to say, hey, you know what? I put some money into my savings, and I pay all my bills on time. And if you're not at least making that minimum payment on the credit card, well, it doesn't matter how much money you put into savings, you're compounding your debt more and more and more. So looking at those high interest debt products, you can start to try to tackle those. And as you pay down the higher interest to the lower interest debt, then that will be sort of your avalanche. So you're
Mm.
starting to once you pay off one, you take that same payment, plus the payment that you were paying and add it
Right.
to the other one. So you just keep adding it over and over and over, and that will help pay down that debt quicker. Or the other one, you tackle the lower debt first. So you say, okay, well, I owe Kelly $100 and I owe
Good.
Nazreen $200. So maybe I'll
Whoa.
pay off Kelly first and then pay off Nazreen. So,
Yes.
that would be the snowball. You start small and celebrate those wins, Hey, I paid off this one thing. Yay. I don't mean celebrate by going to spend more, but celebrate by enjoying it and
That's because
enjoying
it's
the
just
fact that
Baby
Kelly's
you've done
birthday.
steps.
I
it.
get paid first.
Yeah. I gotta.
Hey, Cal, once I pay you off, can we
I'll
celebrate
send you my
together?
e-transfer
That's right.
information.
What's some of that money you're
Um,
supposed to pay Nazreen with?
Yeah.
but what are some ways that someone can keep saving, considering the fact that prices are still going up? I mean, we're talking about $8 to $10 worth of eggs. I mean, come on,
Yeah.
how do we do
Yeah.
this?
Yeah,
Stop
I
eating eggs.
know.
Don't make
Especially
eggs.
right now. I mean, holy smokes. Yeah, and I think here there's a lot of strategies in and around, how do we cut costs?
Yeah.
I mean, the
Mhm.
main one is, let's remember there's a difference between needs and wants, and we do have many needs in our lives, and we've got to eat our 3 meals every day, and we've got to have good nutrition and healthy diets and such. And wants are things like those little extras, the moon pies and the extra bag of chips and the
That's
hey,
me.
let's have some snacks on a Sunday afternoon, whatever have you. Those are those extras. So really important to understand what your needs are and what your wants are. One
And
great way. Oh, sorry.
I was gonna say one great strategy is having one responsible partner and one person that says, "Okay, I actually want everything," you know? So every time we go shopping, we have to like balance each other out. Okay, I want chips, but like, do we need it? No.
Yeah, yeah,
So
Is that the same person
that's
that encourages you to
strategy.
go to the gym, right? Geez, that's
yeah.
the thing you look for, right?
Exactly.
Oh, we should be going there. Put that down. Put the
Exactly.
moon pies down.
Right.
Yes, and I mean picking, and then so I mean a fairly simple one is reaching for those no name products or those house brand products versus the brand name products. I mean, honestly, you can trim 10, 12, $20 off of a weekly spend at a grocery store just by picking up some of those no name products versus the name brand. Now, it's always great when the name brand is the same price as the no name, and that's a great treat. But just trimming out a little bit of that will cut that cost down
Hmm.
just enough to kind of help. Clipping coupons, looking around, finding those deals and bargains. One interesting option is even just unsubscribing from some of those subscription programs.
Good point.
If you get on there and they say, hey, you can sign up for our email service and we're going to give you 10% off or 15% off of the initial purchase. But remember, that comes with a price. They're going to email you every, day or 2 days or
Hmm.
3 days with a special offer and whatnot. And those lead to impulse buys.
We were
And they
just
don't.
talking about that on Monday about the overwhelming amount of emails from subscriptions, and it makes my
Yes.
head pop. Like the amount of 4,000 what emails about those things. No, no, that's it's a moment of weakness, as you said. It really can, push you to buy something more.
And they're
And a lot
very
of time, think
clever.
about it, right? And think about
Yeah.
it. Give yourself time instead of feeling, because they know I'll send this to you and say you have till it's today's the 7th. You have to the 8th to take advantage of this. But Ryan, the smart thing is give it. No, no, no. If I really want it, I'll pay the price that I want or when I want it, or at least think about something and wait around till the next time it's on sale. Some of those are ways to handle that too.
No question, there's the 30-day rule, especially for
Right.
major purchases, give it a little extra time and think it through. But remember these email subscriptions are very clever because it's the act now and hey, we've got a special, but even some of the wording, we missed you shopping. I mean, I know I just purchased something from Amazon not long ago, and a day later they said, come on back, we miss you. And hey, I just bought some yesterday. What?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like the tricks you can do with Uber Eats, right? Open it up, close it up,
Yeah,
and then it sends you
Yeah.
a message saying, "Hey, by the way,
Spam
do you know
you.
there's a sale price on?"
yeah.
What about other expenses on food? Like, I mean, pack your lunch. I know we've talked about, yeah, instead of sitting there buying every day, especially with those coffees, pack your lunch.
Pack a lunch. I mean, I know it sounds simple. It's a, one of those things, but when you think about whether you're buying a meal a couple times a week, 3 times a week, you're running out the door and picking up the coffee on the way, or you're buying a breakfast sandwich or whatever. These things add up, and they're really unnecessary expenses. And I think it's important that spend some time, do some meal prep, understand what it is that what am I going to have this week, and then buy for those things. Are there things in my fridge that I can pair with, so that I'm not overbuying? Because we all run into this. You think to yourself, oh, I want to make this one meal, and then you have to buy all these extra ingredients for that one meal, and then you end up throwing some of them away because you didn't use all those ingredients. So I think it's important to sort of meal plan or meal prep around the things that you already have at home, because then you're not wasting. You're actually using the products that are available to you.
Okay. That's incredible. Before we let you go, we got about a minute. Anything else you want to just get to on the savings ride before we let you turn you loose?
I think the most important thing, it's never too late. Just get started. Whether you're putting $5 away, whether you're putting $100 away, it doesn't matter how much you have. Just get started. It's never too late. You're never going to miss the boat, and it's always good to have some kind of savings together.
Awesome. Thank you, sir, very much. And it's always wonderful to revisit some of this stuff. We need to. We'll talk to you next month, Rye.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
Reach Ryan directly at Sun Life to talk more about financial planning. Send an email to ryan.chin@sunlife.com. I always double check myself. Yeah. To learn more about financial literacy, subscribe to the AMI original podcast, Eyes on Your Money with Ryan and Becky. They did that a couple of years ago, but folks, we know that information is absolutely still, so as we just visited, back to basics, so important. Email us at kellyco@ami.ca. Call us 1-866-509-4545.
The Hot Docs Film Festival is North America's largest documentary film festival, which just wrapped up in Toronto, showcasing Canadian and international documentaries and nonfiction storytelling. Film critic Michael McNeely joins us with his top highlights. Hi, Michael. So tell us, what were your overall impressions this year?
I think overall it was a good year. Unfortunately, Hot Docs has been having some financial challenges, so it's a matter of finding whether or not they can get back onto their feet, whether or not they can sustain the same amount of success that they've had in past years. I think we're still waiting to hear back about the results about this year's festival, but I think it was a positive experience overall.
Love that. And you have two films you'd like to highlight.
Yes, I first would like to mention #Scolding. That's the name of the first film. And do you want me to mention the name of the second film, or should I just talk about Scolding first?
We'll stick to Scolding.
Yeah.
And then we'll get into the second.
So again, it's #SKODEN. As you may or may not know, Scolding was a meme that was popular in the early 10s. So around, I guess, 2013, 2014, 2015. And essentially, it was a meme that was making fun of an Indigenous man named Colonel Bad Arm. He lived in Lethbridge, and he was a member of the Blackfoot Nation. So the meme was making fun of him because the picture it had of him was when he was intoxicated, and they had his fists up in the air. So it was just not a very nice portrayal of him, and the meme kind of made us forget about who he was as a human being.
Yeah. It's interesting, Michael, when you see this kind of thing, and I'm really anxious when you talk about this film to us, because these are the impressions that we leave. And I know this has always been the way, and I think I want to believe, even when we're joking around, making fun, we know better, not just to make fun, but we know that isn't true. This is a picture of one individual. So tell us a little bit how the film dealt with the subject matter.
I think essentially the obvious choice is the best one, and the obvious choice is to humanize the person behind the meme. It's to show us who Purnell is and was, because unfortunately he's passed away now. And Purnell was someone who had experiences with residential school and was traumatized by those experiences and had a lot of challenges with finding sustainable housing and trying to become sober. Unfortunately, the social services in Lethbridge were not adequate or were not up to par with people like Purnell. And so the film also demonstrates the many social crises that occur in the Lethbridge area and the lack of inclusion or community awareness, especially between white and indigenous communities. But Purnell was kind of caught in the middle of that. And he ended up living on the streets for most of his life. When he would find shelter or supportive housing, he was often kicked out for failing to adhere to the supposed rules of the programs. But because he was being punished for that, he wasn't receiving the help that he desperately needed. And so that's unfortunately when the picture was taken during one of his lower moments and kind of failed to recognize the human being underneath.
Does that picture, through the documentary, are we linking that picture to how he was treated in other circumstances, or more so obviously the failure in the system to not help somebody in need?
I think that is the general idea. I think the picture means different things to different people. I think the picture means something different to his family members and to his friends than it would to someone who's just passing the picture for the first time. And also scolding, it sounds like, let's go then. And so I think in some ways it has been reclaimed to show some Indigenous pride and to show the importance of perhaps engaging in activism to improve one's situation. Because if we don't do activism, then those social services will continue to be broken.
Wow, what a powerful film. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Michael, do you want to move on to your second film, or do you have anything else to close with Purnell?
I think I hope that Purnell would have been happy with the film, and I hope that people will continue learning more about him, because I don't think this is supposed to be the be-all of history.
Right.
I think he touched many people's lives, and he definitely touched mine. So I hope that everyone will be able to check out the documentary when it gets to be released to the public.
Great.
Wow. And can we hear about your second option?
Yes. And by the way, I will email you both when either of these films is released, so you can mention it in that particular episode. I'm not sure.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Thank you.
It will be soon.
Yes, please.
So the next film is called Climate in Therapy. And it was quite the title, so I wanted to check it out. And essentially, it's about 7 climate scientists who are forced in quotation marks, because I'm sure they had some fun, but they do complain about being forced to do group therapy in a Hilton hotel in New York City. And this is fascinating because, it seems to be kind of out of time in a way, because they don't talk about Donald Trump. They don't talk about the harmful climate policies that the government is espousing. But all of these people are depressed, as I'm sure you can imagine, and they need some sort of therapy to talk about what they're experiencing in their jobs.
So interesting.
Yeah, When you watch it, Michael, are you able, with it being the 7 of them, to kind of follow it enough, especially, with us being low vision or blind? Is there a lot of discussion as to what they are experiencing, seeing, when it comes to the point of the film?
That's a good point. I think with accessibility, it would be good to identify the names of the speakers. But honestly, watching the film, you don't get a lot of visual information. It's just the ballroom that they're in or the meeting room that they're in. I had to laugh though, because the director does some interesting camera shots. And because they were doing group therapy for 2 days, there's like, an interlude between a day and the next day. One of the shots was showing a bunch of people cutting down the trees in front of the Hilton Hotel. So I had to laugh because I knew that these scientists would lose their minds if they had known that was happening, but I don't think they actually knew. So it was just one of the director's side comments on the situation.
Well, it's a strange place to put them in.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
I mean,
It's
kind of
interesting.
so weird. Yeah, I know it's weird. It's not exactly the most climate-friendly place you can think of. And they're doing construction outside. But what was interesting is that the 7 of them come from different disciplines. So one of them studies bugs, and another one studies, I think, the tropics and the coral reefs. So that was interesting. And I think it was interesting to hear from the women scientists because they took the floor for themselves for a while, because the men didn't really understand what they were talking about. And the women were basically saying that because they are women, they're taken less seriously, and that the women of color are even taken less seriously than just women in general. And one of the women of color had to say that she assigned her students to study in pairs or to do the lab work in pairs because she didn't want the chance of one of them making a discovery and then being unbelieved or disbelieved because she's a woman.
Interesting, because so many of us with disabilities would say the same, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
We'd feel somebody was there to watch over our decisions.
Yeah, exactly. You wouldn't want to be verified. You wouldn't want to say, "Hi, Gillian, I discovered this," and then Gillian would say, "Yes, you discovered it. You can put your name on the document." But if you're a woman by yourself, you may not be taken seriously. So that was kind of a sad state of affairs, but I can imagine it being true.
It sounds like there's a wild, different personalities in the group, and I wanted to ask you, how do you feel about the group dynamic?
I think it was interesting. I think sometimes, like you mentioned, maybe group therapy may not be accessible for people like us in some ways, but a lot of times with, again, the amount of mental health services out there that are available, sometimes group therapy may be the only options that we have, because there may be only one therapist available. So I think the group dynamic was really interesting. I think I'm happy that everyone got along for the most part, because I believe they have professional duties to one another. And even though they griped and they moaned a little bit, they still seemed to get something out of their experience. But 2 days is not a lot of time for group therapy.
Yeah.
And I think it may have been too focused those 2 days. I think you may want to, have a session once a week for 7 weeks, and then you get to think more about the experience. I think it was interesting because some of the people didn't want to be there. They thought it was a waste of time at first. And so it's interesting to think about, how can you get a buy-in? How can you make people want to be there? How do you make it strategic? And I think those are all important questions that we'll have to ask ourselves in the future. But I think it is important to realize that climate scientists are probably likely to be attacked out in the community, and they're probably likely to be disbelieved. So they probably have a lot of mental health concerns that we're not addressing. And they also know that the world is ending, in their opinion.
Michael, do you think the audience wanted to see this? Do you think the title or something attracted them to this? What would have been your thought on satisfaction?
I think it was one of those quirky ones. I always try and get a quirky one, and then there was Golden, which may have more mainstream appeal. But Climate and Therapy was part of the climate program at Hot Docs. I think the climate program did quite well. So I think once you start watching a climate film, you will watch the other ones in the program. So there was a climate film about the coral reefs, and then there was another climate film about algae. Yes, and so there's lots of different topics. And then I think if you're really passionate about the environment, you're going to watch the scientists to do what they have to do.
Yeah, I would imagine that. Awesome.
Thanks, Michael.
Well, thank you so much, Michael.
No problem. Thank you for having me today. And I will let you know when both of these films are released. So we'll keep an eye out for them. Thank you.
Looking forward to it. Michael McNeely joins us every month with his recent film experiences. We can't wait for the next one, I guess.
Nazreen and I are back tomorrow with you. Great topics on the show. For a little example, how can you as a blind person understand and appreciate dance? Experiments around this question are being conducted in Toronto. Christine Malik participated in a unique collaboration recently, and she'll be here tomorrow with the highlights from her experience. We will discuss. Fedora's off to you. Have a great remainder of the day.
Thanks for tuning in to Kelly and Company. Follow us on all social media, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more.